Tonight's story is about a place called Belhurst Castle, part luxury hideaway, part grand estate, and part living mystery that refuses to stay buried. People don't just visit, they linger. And when the night gets quiet, that's when the castle feels awake. They say Seneca Lake has a way of holding on to things. Voices, weather, the past. And Belhurst Castle, this dramatic stone and turret landmark, sits right where beauty meets isolation. So if you've ever wondered how a building can feel like more than just a building, start here, because Bellhurst doesn't have to chase you, it just waits. Belhurst Castle didn't start out as a haunted destination. Before the whispers, before the unexplained cold spots and doors that close on their own, it was something else entirely. It was a dream, rendered in stone and timber on the shore of Seneca Lake. It began with ambition, not for notoriety, but for permanence. The vision was for a private residence that would stand as a testament to its owner's success, a piece of European grandeur transplanted to American soil. Someone wanted to build something unforgettable, a structure that would command the landscape and endure for generations. The plans called for Medina sandstone, a material known for its resilience and rich earthy tones, quarried and brought to the site with immense effort. Each block was a commitment. The estate grew into a property that, for a time, represented precisely that: success and permanence. Inside, the craftsmanship was just as deliberate. Elegant spaces were panelled in rich, dark wood, imported and hand-carved. Dramatic architecture, turrets reaching for the sky, winding staircases, and cavernous fireplaces created a sense of awe. These were rooms designed not just for living, but for making an impression on visitors who could afford to escape the ordinary world and step into this one. But every castle, every grand home like this, has a second life. A shadow narrative that begins to form the moment the last stone is set. It's not the one you find on postcards, frozen in a perfect sunlit afternoon. It's the one made from stories passed down, from unexplained moments. It's built from the quiet observations of staff after the guests have retired, the hushed conversations in town, and the unsettling feelings reported by those who stay within its walls. It's the story of what people happened when the lights were off, and the sharp lake air began to press against the glass. And with Bellhurst, those stories don't come from nowhere. They come from a pattern, a consistency in the accounts over decades. They emerge from the way people describe the atmosphere, how the grounds feel more alive at certain hours, and how the history of the place, its triumphs and its rumoured sorrows, feels stitched into the very stone, as if the walls themselves were designed to remember. Here's what makes Bellhurst different from every other old estate story. It's not just a ghost, it's the feeling of a location that remembers. People talk about tension, about lingering unease in hallways, and the impression that something is watching from the periphery. Even when nothing is there, the castle carries a kind of pressure, like the air itself is bracing for something. And when a place holds that kind of energy, the legends follow. Because once people believe the castle has history, they start mapping that history onto every shadow. Bellhurst is the kind of building where the layout itself starts to play tricks. It was constructed from Medina sandstone, a material that seems to absorb sound and light, creating an atmosphere that feels both ancient and alive. The design isn't just a collection of rooms, it's a carefully orchestrated experience, a maze of red oak paneling and stone that guides you, and sometimes misguides you. You walk down long, winding corridors that seem to subtly shift their destination. You feel the immense weight of heavy, solid oak doors as they swing shut behind you, the click of the latch echoing in a way that feels unnervingly final. And then there are the windows, tall and imposing, that don't look out onto manicured lawns, but over the vast dark water of the lake. They frame a view that is constantly changing, yet always feels remote, isolating the castle from the modern world. Legends grow fastest, where sight lines are imperfect, where a hallway curves just out of view, or a reflection in a darkened window pane doesn't quite match what's in the room. In these spaces, you can't confirm what you think you're seeing, and you're left with only instinct. That's when people fill in the gaps. The human mind abhors a vacuum, and in a place like this, the vacuum is filled with stories. They'll tell you there are moments when the castle feels disturbed, when the silence isn't the peaceful quiet of an old building settling. It's a different kind of silence, the kind that feels staged, the kind that makes you check your surroundings twice, suddenly aware of the space behind your own back. It's a silence that feels like a held breath, as if the entire building is waiting for something to happen. But even the best ghost stories have a spine, human motives, love, jealousy, ambition, loss. These are the engines of any compelling tale. The portraits on the walls aren't just decoration, they are silent witnesses, their painted eyes having watched generations of life unfold. So the question becomes, what kind of life did this castle house? What triumphs and tragedies played out in these grand rooms, now so quiet and still? What happened here that people prefer to keep vague? Every grand family has its secrets, its unspoken sorrows, its carefully managed narratives. Not every mystery is supernatural. Some are just buried under years of polite storytelling, hidden in the ink of a faded letter, or locked away in a memory box. These are the stories of people, and sometimes those are the most haunting stories of all. At a place like Bellhurst, a place steeped in more than a century of history, the most convincing horror is rarely the one with the loudest claim. It isn't found in the dramatic tales of spectral figures or violent apparitions that demand your attention. Instead, the truly unsettling stories are quieter, more subtle. They are the ones that feel anchored in a recognizable reality, the ones that whisper of plausible human sorrow and struggle. The most enduring chill comes from a story that sounds like something that have happened here. It's the narrative that doesn't require a leap of faith into the supernatural, but a simple understanding of human nature. We recognize the potential for tragedy, for quiet desperation, for unresolved tensions that linger long after the people involved are gone. These are the seeds of every great ghost story, planted in the fertile ground of historical fact and emotional truth. And here, the contrast is everything. These beautiful, breathtaking rooms were designed to project an image of power, permanence, and unassailable joy. They were meant to impress, to host celebrations and declare a family's status. But beneath that gilded surface is the universal knowledge that every grand home, every dynasty, eventually faces hard times. The history of any place this old is inevitably a story of conflict, of profound loss, and the slow, painful fading of a family's control over their own property and destiny. When people lose stability, when their world is upended by financial ruin, illness, or grief, they leave marks. These imprints aren't always found in official records or archived letters. Sometimes, the evidence is etched into the very fabric of the building. It's in the worn floorboards, the chipped plaster, the subtle signs of neglect that interrupt the curated grandeur. More often, these marks are left in human behavior. They manifest in habits passed down through generations of staff, in the unspoken rules about which rooms to avoid after dark. They are found in the way certain spaces are treated, how a particular hallway is always hurried through, how visitors who know nothing of the law independently report the same strange feeling of being watched, or a sudden, inexplicable drop in temperature, over and over again. Bellhurst's lore survives precisely because it's so consistent. It's not one person's isolated fantastical account. It's a layered narrative, built from countless small, corroborating experiences. The story of a faint scent of perfume in an empty room, or the sound of footsteps on the stairs when no one is there, doesn't change much from person to person, decade to decade. And that consistency, that pattern emerging from the noise of history, is what makes people look deeper. It compels us to ask not the stories are true, but they are told. So what do people say happens at Bellhurst? They talk about strange occurrences after hours. They mention the sensation that the property is more than a building, more like a presence with its own rhythm. Some stories describe footsteps that don't match anyone's location. Others point to cold pockets of air, places where the temperature drops like the castle is holding a breath. And then there are the accounts that don't sound dramatic, but feel convincing, the sense that you're not alone, even when you're the only one around. Because the scariest part isn't what you see, it's what you assume you should have seen, and didn't. Here's the takeaway, the reason Bellhurst's legend sticks. A castle like this doesn't just stand on land, it stands on memory. And when a location has witnessed lives, celebrations, tensions, quiet routines, and endings, people start believing that the final chapters don't always close cleanly. At Bellhurst, the story isn't one simple haunting. It's layered, it's atmosphere and history, and the kind of mystery that grows because people keep adding their own observations to the old ones. So if you ever visit, don't treat it like a museum. Treat it like a question, because the castle is the kind of place where the past doesn't need to announce itself. It just waits for you to notice it. If you made it this far, you already know the rule. The best hauntings don't chase you. They hold your attention. Now imagine what you'd do if, after a long walk through a grand estate, you noticed that the silence felt intentional, like the castle was listening back.